We all of us enjoy snooping around other people's houses, don't we? I mean, figuring out how people live, what brand of plug-in air freshener they use, looking at their bookshelves. So I have good news. Grand Design's House of the Year is back.
That means we're snooping around the houses long-listed for the Royal Institute of British Architects House of the Year prize.
What a place! Whoa, whoa, whoa!
So far, we've seen some extraordinary houses in our Dare to be Different category.
People want to reprise what's already been successful. Introducing a new element is really quite difficult.
And some remarkable houses with a past.
I like the crack in the wall.
That's intentional. We thought about that for a while and decided not to spend any money doing anything on that.
With the architect Damien Burrows and design expert Michelle Agundahin, in this episode, I'm looking at a third category of homes that are all extreme and pioneering.
You're going to do something once, you might as well make a go of it.
At the end of the show, we'll find out which of the spectacular houses on the long list have been shortlisted by the judges.
You're trying to measure apples against pears, and sometimes turnips.
Then, in the final episode, we'll discover who the winner is of one of the most celebrated prizes for residential architecture, the 2018 House of the Year.
We have the keys, we have the open invitation to look through people's drawers. All you have to do is sit on the sofa.
So far in this series, 4 buildings have made it onto the shortlist. Pheasants, a waterside respite of modernism. The urban superpowered Red House. Old Shed, new house, glamorous and reinvigorated. And the meticulous and resonant Coastal House.
In this programme, we're taking a look at extreme houses. And by that, I mean houses that push at the limits of what's possible, in all kinds of ways. Some are base-jumping, adrenaline junkie wingsuit wearers that like leaping off the tallest cliff they can find just for the thrill of it. Others, in a quieter vein, might have the largest collection of toy lawnmowers known to man, or dress up in Civil War clothes at the weekend. I don't know, maybe I'm pushing this analogy too far. Anyway, what they all embody is a burning desire to innovate and to pioneer.
Our first house, tucked away in the quiet Kent countryside, is Black House, a piece of extreme domestic engineering. Most people would be happy with 1 cantilever. This house has got 4 daring spikes of building jutting out into space.
What a piece of theatre.
It was built by Norman and Tina. No surprise that Norman is a retired commercial structural engineer.
The interest was pushing a structure to its extremity, which is what we were doing here, in a domestic situation.
Designing a building that didn't have significant structural interest in it, I would feel really quite insulted with my own performance.
Black House is a set of 4 epic cantilevered boxes. In the largest box is an open-plan kitchen. Surrounding a central courtyard are 3 further pushed-out boxes, with a living room, formal dining room, and in the final box, 4 bedrooms. Towering above them all is a study.
Hello, Norman. Hello, Tina.
Hello.
These cantilevers could have worked if they were half the size.
It wouldn't
Rather
have been so
wonderfully.
dramatic. You're going to do something once, you might as well make a go of it. I mean,
You were egging them on, then?
absolutely.
Something like that is very expensive to do. Very, very tricky. No doubt, as an engineer for you, just a delight. I can imagine it added considerably to the cost.
By having this concept, you've probably increased it by 50%.
The overall budget.
Yes.
So my internal budget was going down, down, down as this structural cost was going up, up, up.
But inside, there's absolutely no trace of any compromise.
It's compelling, isn't it? Good lit space.
Being in the kitchen is like floating in a great white cloud, looking out to the Kent countryside and the orchard below.
It's all very well as having very architectural, structural thing about cantilevers, but bottom line, it's how you feel in a space and what gives you pleasure. And one of the things that gives me pleasure is we have this inside-outside thing, this compelling view outside, and then we have it again over here behind us.
Ah, the mirror.
When I'm cooking, I can see who's in the room and beyond.
I like that.
Black House impressed the RIBA judges with its crisp, clean lines and thoughtful response to the landscape, which also informed the internal layout, so that each room looks out onto an outdoor space, loosely connected with its function. The kitchen looks out onto an orchard and productive garden. The minimal dining room has views out onto a formal garden, and the casual, cool living room onto a relaxed swimming pool. But the architect explored these functions and relationships much, much more.
So this is how I would have, rather uninventively, designed this building, as a rectangle on this site with 4 functions, 4 different rooms: the kitchen facing out towards the orchard, the dining room facing out towards the formal garden, the sitting room facing the swimming pool, and the bedrooms facing the private little hedge here at the back. But the architect's far more inventive than I am, so what he's done is this. He's shunted out the kitchen to make an enormous cantilever. He's moved the dining room block over here to give it separation, and then placed the sitting room in between the dining room, giving the bedrooms a sort of sense of privacy at the back here. Oh, and look, in so doing, he's made a hole in the middle.
The central courtyard is a cloister. The circulation space of the entire house literally wraps around it and invites the sky in. The boxy organisation of space and function here means there is a powerful clarity to this house.
I like to strip everything down to its absolute basics, and I think, the box is the most pure, simple shape. It's about creating a clarity of organisation.
Have the jury told you what they like about it?
The jury, they came here and I think they really got what we were talking about in terms of the way that it functions in such a clean way. We had a fairly serious kind of walk around, but then we ended up in the courtyard and we were spinning on the chairs, and actually this house is great fun as well. We've had a few parties here.
And when a party's in full swing, the kitchen cantilever fills up with people. A lot of people, in a box floating 7 feet in the air.
I've no trepidation about having 4 or 5 times this number of people in the room. I'd be slightly nervous if they all started jumping up and down in unison.
Keep the music down and you'll be fine. I'm sure you'll be fine. Meantime, I'm looking for the bathroom in the cloistered corridor.
No, yes, that's a door. It's a bedroom. No, it's not one here. Oh, hang on. Oh, there's one here. And another one. It's like the crystal maze. Handles would be nice.
The house took 3 years to finally finish, 2 more years than Norman and Tina had anticipated. Much of the trickiness was brought on by the complexity of the structural engineering.
Talking about the cantilever, some of the technical issues it raises are quite significant. It introduces many more specialist subcontractors. This is not a standard foundation, so it has to be someone that knows about reinforced concrete. The buildings are held down by anchor ties and all sorts of technical things. So you immediately introduce an element of technicality that a normal builder could struggle with. I think our builder did struggle.
It was meant to be completed in 12 months. At 24 months, the builders still hadn't finished and went bust, leaving the site and the job unfinished. Looking back from the comfort of an immaculate home, how are they able to reconcile what they have now with the house's painful struggle of a birth?
Because both of us come from a building background, one would imagine that a project of this size would be simple, straightforward. And that couldn't have been less true. It was an embarrassment that our building was...
How did we get in this situation?
Painful as building this house might have been, what Tina and Norman have achieved here is, I think, staggering.
Do you regret pushing those parameters at the height, the size?
No.
No.
There are certain things which you have to push, even although it's difficult.
Would you have the gumption to build a shrine to all the values and beliefs that you hold dear? Because that's exactly what they've done. In this building, they have made manifest all their great loves of design, furniture, furnishings, engineering. And it is heroic.
We have 3 more maverick pioneering homes to see.
Ooh, it carries on inviting you up.
Until we discover which have been lucky enough to make it to the shortlist for the RIBA 2018 House of the Year.
The inspiration for a building can come from anywhere, from people, objects, or the place itself. It's where the story of the building starts. Here at Downley House, designed by Bird's Porchmouth Russell, whose eccentric house in North London made the shortlist last year, here the hallway is inspired by a wine barrel. That is more like it. But our next house, well, it was inspired by something you can't see.
On the streets of East London, the inspiration for the house I'm going to look at takes its cue from music, apparently. This is Vex, and it is out there. It was somehow inspired by this piece of music, Vexations by Eric Satie. It's made up of 3 large concrete drums, each of which houses a different function. The ground floor contains a lower-level studio space, above which are 2 bedrooms. The 3rd and largest floor has an open-plan living room and kitchen, while at the very top of the house there's a private roof terrace. It was designed by architects Stephen Chance and Wendy De Silva.
Hi.
Hi, Wendy, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Hi.
Yeah, good to meet you. Hi.
Kevin.
Good to see you, and you both. Standing here, it's quite a monumental thing.
You're right.
Quite majestic. Can you really be inspired by a piece of piano music to build a building?
Yeah, I think you can. The score is very short and it repeats 840 times. The idea behind the music, which is about movement and fluidity and sort of spirals, this building had to be somehow informed by that.
Do I have to take a tour of the building 840 times?
I'll
Yes,
tell you
to
what,
get the full experience, I'm afraid.
You'll keep looping and looping and looping till you get to the top.
Yeah.
These looping, swirling shapes were made using enormous wooden moulds or shuttering, filled with concrete to form the walls and floors. A layer of corrugated steel wrapped inside the shuttering cast the rippling surface. The builders, Nigel Fanshawe and Barry Phillips, had never done anything like it.
Concrete days weren't happy days, were they? Quite stressful, really. Obviously, it's in the back of your mind, isn't it, that
if it goes,
it could go wrong. So.
And if it goes, it's only going to end up on the floor.
Don't forget, we're doing this in one continuous circle, so we only get one go at it.
It would just have to be ripped down if it had gone wrong.
No, there was no plan B. It had to work.
It had to work.
we put a lot of work into getting it to work.
Luckily, it did, though this triumph of the extreme took years. The judges praised the experimental approach Vex had taken, its uniqueness and its honesty. It is both raw and decorative, brutalist and frilly, both outside and in. You understand what this place is made of, concrete and steel mesh. It pushes at the boundaries of design and comfort.
So this is the
bedroom.
It's very well lit.
But the house gets softer and more elegant the higher you go up. Beautiful oak floor, very soft. The The bedrooms on the first floor are domestic, almost cosy, with fine views out onto the street. To spiral upwards is like climbing the winding stairs of a medieval cathedral until you reach the top of the tower.
So the top floor is living, yeah?
Living, dining, space and a balcony on the next floor.
A great slab. Ooh! Ooh! He carries on inviting you up. Oh, this is the deck. It goes very private.
Where you can look at the stars or sunbathe. And then we can bring light in, for example, through this roof light here.
Oh, yeah, yeah. A little oculus. That's nice.
It works a bit like a sundial. The sun comes through and you see this sort of circle of sun moving across.
You're reminded, of course, of that kind of wheeling nature of the building.
Yeah.
Yes, through.
Wendy and Steve weren't just the architects of this wonderful whirling project. They actually built Vex as developers.
So why not just stick some very nice, genteel flats up?
That's not really what we do. When we act as clients or developers, it's because it creates an opportunity for us to do something that we want to do. We still have to do it within the envelope of funding and making it work and paying the loans back and everything else. But actually, you know, if you set out to do it, you get something extra. It's really quite a rich way of doing it. A one-off bespoke project, so we don't have the fear of having sort of 50 flats to flog or something like that. We've got one completely unique building and we just need one appreciative person who's going to come along and love it. Yeah.
They haven't found the one appreciative person to buy it quite yet, but they now have tenants, the Hermans, who currently rent the building. They've been living here for 9 months now and have learned to embrace the building's minimalist character.
We had to get rid of 80% of our stuff because there's just no storage here. And actually it's a very nice way of decluttering your life.
We have a more simple life here. Yeah, much more simple, minimalistic. It works for us.
This house is one big experiment for those who live in it and the architects who made it. It's inspired others to be similarly avant-garde, like Scanner, a world-renowned ambient composer who worked with Wendy and Steve to create a piece of music inspired by the building.
Wendy videoed the guys pouring the concrete through these giant tubes into the construction, and I thought, it sounds amazing. I've used that original recording and started to play it as notes, and the rhythm comes from them just hammering on something.
So Scanner's piece of music for this building, made from this building, is, of course, beautiful, resonant, and very contemplative. But I have actually composed my own response, which, for an orchestra, would be scored for tom-toms, tubular bells, and harp. But here, it's the building.
This building has also helped transform the neighbourhood by rescuing a plot that had become an eyesore and rubbish dump.
This plot was just derelict garages. People had started to dump things there. There was a bit of a rat problem, so it's getting to be a bit of an eyesore. Yeah, then Steve and Wendy, the architects, started to progress with the building. I'm glad to see the land being put to good use.
I don't think it fits in, but I don't care. I just think how wonderful to have such an interesting building in our street.
I just love the fact that somebody has had such a strong vision for the plot and what it could be. I'm quite proud to live opposite, actually.
You know, when somebody tells you about a project like this, your first reaction is probably going to be, well, that sounds a bit pretentious. Then you get to explore the building, and there's a moment you discover just how good and exciting and playful it is. They say, don't they, that every great master of their craft must not simply be excellent at what they do, but they should also be able to have fun with it.
Next up, a wild and windy 21st century croft house.
It really was something else when it blows in. The site toilet ended up being blown 50 metres down the beach.
This is nice, isn't it? The gentle rolling hills, beautiful manicured landscape. Not for everyone, mind. You see, for some, the wild, rugged, rocky and windswept is infinitely preferable.
In a far-flung part of Scotland is the next house in our extreme category. Damien Burrows went to have a look.
We all yearn for some peace and quiet once in a while. But what if you wanted to make that a permanent reality and build your home in a place like this?
Well, you'd want to build a house like this. Lockside, a quiet, restrained and almost camouflaged home in the wild. It has burnt Scottish larch cladding, dry stone walls. It looks like it's grown out of the ground. What appears to be a set of 3 finely crafted sheds huddled together is in fact one home. Inside this 21st century croft, there are 2 guest bedrooms, an open-plan kitchen and dining area, a living room that looks out onto the loch, and hidden away at the back of the house is a master bedroom. Lockside was commissioned by Michelle, an artist whose work is inspired by nature and dramatic landscapes.
I tend to be drawn to kind of empty, barren places. I just like that sense of freedom that you get. It is a completely different lifestyle living in a place like this. It's quite physically hard work.
Michelle, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Nice
to meet you.
What an incredible house. It doesn't appear like one single dwelling. It's almost like a little community of buildings.
Yes, I felt it was important to break it up just so that it sat more comfortably into the landscape.
To actually get this house built, I mean, it's an off-track road to actually get to the site. It's so far removed.
I think when I first started, I didn't really think about the practicalities too much. I kind of jumped in. I was so enthusiastic about this amazing place. At one point, we did consider bringing things in by sea because it actually would be a lot easier, but it would have worked out too expensive. So in the end, we just designed everything to be small enough to fit onto the back of a trailer to come down the track. And I suppose the whole project really was designed around that problem. And also getting people here, because there's not many local craftsmen. And when we initially tendered, we wanted to get 5 tenders, and we just couldn't get 5 tenders. We ended up with 2.
It wasn't easy getting services here either. So the house is completely off-grid, powered by the sun with water pulled up from a borehole. It's a self-sufficient home, and inside...
Wow.
Off-grid has never looked so pared back and beautiful. White oiled timber, rough textured plaster, and rooms that are delightful and modest.
I kept emphasising to the architect that I wanted simple. I didn't want big spaces. I wanted something that would be very comfortable and livable in. Everything seems to just flow from one thing to the next. I think the change in the height of the ceiling helps as well, because you do get that sense of the different spaces. They're still connected, but you feel the differentiation of morning space to daytime space and evening space.
And then you go straight from this, and the view just pulls you down here. Ah, this is lovely. I love how you get this real sense of height.
I love being able to see the trees through the windows there. And the morning sun comes through that window as well, so you get the view that way. And then obviously looking out onto the water.
Lockside House made the long list because the judges were blown away by the material choices, the scale, and the integration of the building into its wonderful wild setting. This beautiful location also gave Tom Miller, the architect, all the inspiration he needed.
The roofs echo the mountains that dominate the skyline here. These walls around us pick up the horizontal terraces of the sedimentary rocks that outcrop all around.
Is this just about one of the most extreme environments that you've created a home?
Oh, absolutely. It really was something else when it blows in. The site toilet, which had something like 6 or 7 bags of concrete in the bottom of it, ended up being blown 50 metres down the beach. They had to tie the scaffolding boards onto the scaffolding because otherwise they would blow off. And the worst thing is to look around and find the scaffolding board behind you is gone. You don't want that to happen.
Compound those elemental forces with the midge.
Midges, yeah. The contractor, he thought midges was one of the most terrifying bits of it.
The midges were horrific. When we first started digging the ground, you disturb the ground, and that's when the midges are at their worst. We ended up hats, midgie net on, we had gloves on.
Duct tape round the
taped
sleeve.
up to our sleeves so they could not get in when I discovered a hole in my midgie net. That was
Yeah.
the worst bit for me on the job.
The weather during the build was challenging. Whenever you listened to the radio and they were saying storm coming in, you knew it was going to be worse.
But amazingly enough, every time there was a site meeting, it was a lovely day.
Yes.
The architect never suffered any of it.
Any house built here has to be super resilient. So to protect the wood cladding, the builders charred the timber. Burning the surface of the wood forms a weather-resistant barrier against the lashing wind and rain. But in an environment as remote as this, the builders had to make a kiln to cook it in with what they had available.
So we have paving slabs and breeze blocks and a couple of blow torches. They're angled so that as you push the wood through the cavity here, through the hole, the flame circles round the timber. We've never done it before, so there's a lot of trial and quite a few errors till you got it right. That's a lovely one, nice and even, front and back.
Lockside isn't just where Michelle lives, she also works here too, in a studio a stone's throw from her house. Also designed by Tom, her architect.
Oh, fantastic.
It's a great view, isn't it?
Would it not have been easier just to build the annex on the side of the house?
Partly I wanted to have a separate work area, and also the work I do is quite messy, so it's better not to trace clay into the house.
Having this house and having this workspace, how has it changed how you actually live?
I feel very settled here. I find that I don't want to go anywhere. I just stay here and work or sketch, and yeah, I'm quite happy.
To build in this remote and often harsh environment takes a mammoth effort of perseverance and sheer determination. But the results can be incredible. Michelle and her team have created a truly remarkable home that completely belongs in its landscape.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that the houses on the long list are the preserve of an exclusive clientele, yeah? But the ideas pioneered here are already influencing popular housing.
Our design expert, Michelle Gunderhin, is off to see one such large development in East Anglia, which mixes private and affordable housing.
This is Aura, a volume housing development on the outskirts of Cambridge that recently won a 2018 RIBA East Award. But what's really interesting to me is that 40% of this housing is classified as affordable.
This is beautiful architecture for everyone. Aura is a development of 159 apartments and 235 new houses, where average wage earners can own a share of their home. But there are no dull developer houses here, no soulless cookie-cutter homes. There's a real mix. Some residents inhabit sleek white boxes that float above the landscape. Others live in smartly designed garden blocks. The architect behind all of this was Mike Jameson.
So we worked to create house types and apartment types that respond to this setting. So houses that overlook the park have a different feel from, say, the houses that you find in one of the courtyards, or a house or apartment that overlooks the mature plantations of trees.
Well, it's wonderful because we know today that those are the things that are really important for people, like a connection to nature and natural daylight and a feeling of expansiveness.
Those things can come at a hefty price. Yet Aura was affordable enough for two first-time buyers, Shane and his partner, Chloe, to get a foot on the housing ladder.
We have a lovely wraparound outdoor balcony, and we have really high ceilings and nice floor-to-ceiling windows. And all of these things combined made the flat feel a lot bigger than it is, and really kind of brought in the outdoor and indoor together and really let us enjoy the space we had.
And we've managed to make a few people jealous, which has been really nice.
Another development, aesthetically not to everyone's taste, is the Stone Age Clerkenwell Close in East London, 8 apartments and an office. It's a small-scale experiment using a stone exoskeleton on the outside to support the building. The architect's hoping to try it out on a larger housing scheme.
How does this actually hold the building up?
Very simply, it's by gravity. So big pieces of stone are the columns and beams, and behind there...
Suddenly a bit nervous.
Well, there are no stainless steel or other methods of pinning any of this together. It's one piece on top of another. Ultimately, this is about a quarter of the price of doing a concrete or steel framed structure.
By saving money on the outside, Armin has been able to spend more on the internal fit-out. There's polished concrete and there are oak doors which slide, slot and fold together. Putting the structural support on the outside means more space inside too.
Every single detail of this apartment block has been agonised over. And it might look a bit like an ancient stone ruin, but this small-scale exercise in ingenuity might just be a way to build bigger blocks for us all.
We're almost at the end of our tour of trailblazing houses across the UK. We've got just one more remarkable building to see before we find out which of these homes will be swept up onto the shortlist for the 2018 House of the Year. Taking things to excess can be a really bad idea, can't it? I mean, drinking, eating too much, working too hard. But buildings really benefit from that rigour, obsession, absolute clarity of focus, where every idea is worked through to the most minute of details. I'm just going to close my eyes for a minute.
Rigour and obsessiveness are qualities possessed by our next house in Northern Ireland. Outside Belfast, among the gentle rolling hills, something pointy has emerged.
Now that is how you cut a shape into the landscape.
This is Meson Wedge. Striking, angular, beautiful. It was designed by architect John Lavery.
It really started off with this idea as a sculptural object for living in. That's what I wanted to achieve with the project.
John has designed the building around a single shape, the wedge. There is the living wedge, with kitchen diner and downstairs sitting area, above which is a lounge for enjoying the views. And then there is the sleeping wedge, with 3 bedrooms. Other wedges of note include a gate wedge, window wedges, a garden wedge, and a patio wedge. Clients for this meticulous and sculptural project are the owners, Denise, a manager in a medical company, and Henry, who works for a local business.
When we commit to something, we've seen it through.
Well, we're both quite sort of similar that way. We quite like an organised routine. We like to plan things.
I do like things to run exactly how they should and make sure that everything is spot on. I've been told I'm more Swiss than the Swiss when it comes to detail. That's fine. I'll take that one.
Hey, Henry, how are you? Hey,
How are you?
Denise.
Nice
Good
to
to
meet
meet you. The building itself has got such a strong presence, these almost battling angles. What was your original brief to the architect?
Push the boundaries as much as possible. We told them, take what you normally do and forget about that and basically
Start again.
Start again. We didn't want something that was just here. We wanted something that was, I'm here.
Here?
Henry and Denise were inspired to build the house after living and working abroad in Switzerland for 4 years.
It was really about doing something that reflected what we had seen in Switzerland, so we really liked the modern, contemporary architecture.
We just like the simplicity of it, the nice, natural, clean lines, the sharp looks.
The judges were struck by the energy of the shapes here, and of course loved the careful detailing developed to hide anything that might distract from the building's uncompromising angles. So, no unsightly satellite dishes here. The guttering and pipework have all been cleverly concealed on the roof. And on the inside...
Thank you. Oh, wow. What an arrival space.
Well, the same extreme hygienic rigour is carried through. In the kitchen and dining room, there's not an architrave or skirting board in sight. Only more wedges. And a secret door.
In you go.
Ah, perfect. Why hasn't every house got one of these?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It works really well, and it's nice because we can just hide everything away. And,
Great for dinner parties.
Yeah, exactly. You can do all the prep out here, and then you just come through to
Then you've had enough, you can just close the doors. Job done.
Thoughtful design is everywhere in the house. A secret office for Denise in the sleeping wedge. A mezzanine viewing box at the top of the house. And then there's the downstairs toilet.
We've tried to keep it nice and light and airy. So again, we've gone against the grain, I guess, putting a nice clear window in. Just give us a loo with a view. You have to take your chances, I guess.
All part of the fun in this wild and wonderful, highly personal home. There's plenty for Denise and Henry to enjoy in their own wedge wonderland.
And here, great big picture window, and then wedges within wedges.
This wedge is credit to our architect's wife. She's also an architect. And we were trying to decide how to finish off this area. And rather than putting in just a flat finish to it, she suggested we stay with the wedge theme. So that's why it is.
There's always room for one more.
Denise and Henry planned their project for 3 years before they started work. But no sooner had they laid the foundations, disaster struck.
Unfortunately, the construction company went into administration after 3 or 4 months.
It's quite difficult at the time because obviously everything one day's moving along and then all of a sudden, bang, everything's taken away from you. And we're people, we like being in control, and when everything's moving along, it's great. But then all of a sudden, all we've got is a concrete slab in a field. We're sort of having to think, well, you know, where do we go from here?
Denise and Henry managed to find a company to take on the project and build their house and difficult-shaped roof.
It is a challenging shape, so it's not only sloped as a wedge, but it also has a twist within it as well.
To make the wonky wedge shape with a twist, the builders had to cut each piece of timber for the structure individually on site. It took 3 months to make the wedge roofs, the most complicated and technically challenging wedges of all.
All the time, I'm hearing wedge, wedge, wedge.
The key thing, Damien, was very simple. Why come up with a concept and not try and follow it the whole way right through? So this is a very different house. The concept of Meson wedge and this sculptural object for living in had to be followed right down.
Not everyone would follow it to this degree, perhaps, but here the rigorous pursuit of one idea has produced a seriously good building.
Henry and Denise are the architectural equivalent of storm chasers. They've taken the geometry of the wedge and quite simply gone to town with it, creating an outstanding piece of architecture.
Long live the Wedge.
All the houses in this series are possibles to win this year's prestigious RIBA House of the Year award. But what does it take to scoop the grand prize?
Set within the rolling chalk hills of the Aylesbury Vale is Flint House, which won House of the Year in 2015, frankly because of its marvellous geological construction. The judges thought it a shining example of material and architectural design at its best. It is a building inspired directly by the local geology, in particular a great seam of flint that runs beneath the site. Flint House sits on the Wadston Manor estate and was commissioned by Lord Rothschild.
Credit for the beautiful place it is today goes to the architect, Charlotte Skene-Catling. It was her vision to make this building look like a rock coming out of the landscape.
It's currently inhabited by the art historian Tom Campbell, who's here on a short-term fellowship scheme.
When I first told a friend that I was coming to the Flint House, they said, "Ooh, that's a really uncomfortable building. There are all these sharp edges. You know, you'll have to wear padding." And, you know, when you arrive, it is a very austere, geometric building. But as I've discovered living here, it's not grandiose.
The rooms inside are in fact on a very human scale, and they're modest. Low ceilings on the ground floor draw the eye out towards the landscape views. There are almost no doors either, which makes exploring the house an experience in itself.
It's not a series of rooms, it's a series of interlocking spaces that draw the eye through and draw you through physically.
But perhaps the greatest quality of Flint House is how it's been designed to fit into where it is.
The idea of it looking like a rock by this water is what makes it a unique property. And I think that's why it was a worthy winner.
We've seen 4 daring buildings that push at the limits in their different ways, but only 2 can progress.
Will it be the big, boxy and beautiful Black House? The enigmatic concrete Vex inspired by music? The windswept wonder that is Lockside? Or the sharp sculptural Meson Wedge? Takero Shimazaki, head of the judges, reveals the first building that's made it onto the shortlist for the 2018 RIBA House of the Year.
So what house have you shortlisted from this category?
Vex.
Vex.
Vex. It's fun, isn't it? It's really kind of quite rare these days to see something like this. The ambition of the project and the kind of the concrete that's going around, and it's a piece of sculpture in the city. It's really refreshing to see a proper bit of concrete in London. I mean, that's good.
Proper bit of concrete.
I'm a fan of concrete.
Fantastic. That's a surprise. Great news. People come and they're first surprised, and then quite often they end up with a smile on their face, and I think that has a lot to do with it.
And what's the second house that you shortlisted?
This is Lockside House. It's obviously a gorgeous, gorgeous setting, but I think we were all touched by the architectural kind of humbleness of it. You know, it's not kind of shouting, look at me, look at me. It just sort of effortlessly just sits there. The materials, like the stone, they're large, they come from the area, so it's kind of very much a local product.
Michelle, the main reason I was calling is that they've just explained that your house hasn't just got onto the long list, it's actually been shortlisted now.
Oh, wow, that's
Is that extraordinary? Absolutely wonderful news. It's fantastic to be shortlisted, absolutely wonderful. It's one of those projects that you just want to make the most of. You want to give it your best because the site is worth giving it your absolute best.
So the rugged Lockside and wonderful winding concrete Vex House go through to the shortlist.
Like all the great heroic explorers, the pioneers of architecture risk all in the quest to build something powerful, something extreme. They go where no developer ever would. They see opportunity where others only see limitation, and they don't conform. They set the rules by which others follow. For great architecture to develop and prosper, we need more of them.
Next time in our final programme, we'll be completing our tour of the long list, looking at a category of homes which celebrate their materials and craftsmanship.
That is one hell of a window.
That's 3 sliding doors. They weigh half a tonne each.
But how high are they?
They're 6 metres.
We'll also be discovering the final homes to get onto the shortlist, and then finding out which of these amazing buildings will be crowned the winner of the RIBA House of the Year 2018.